All right, today we are talking about the intersection between immigration and entrepreneurship. I'm talking with a venture capitalist who founded a VC firm that's focused on investing in immigrant entrepreneurs. His name is Nitin Pachisia. I'll tell you more about him in a second, so stay tuned.
Welcome to the Smart Business Revolution podcast, where we feature top entrepreneurs, business leaders, and thought leaders and ask them how they built key relationships to get where they are today. Now, let's get started with the show.
All right, welcome everyone. John Corcoran here. I am the host of this show, and every week we talk with smart entrepreneurs, founders, and investors in all kinds of companies. We've had Netflix and Grubhub, Redfin, Gusto, Kinko's, YPO, EO, Activation Blizzard. Lots of great episodes, so check out the archives if you want to see more of this types of content. And before we get into this episode, this episode is brought to you by Rise 25, where we help businesses to give to and connect to their dream relationships and partnerships. How do we do that? We do that by helping B2B companies to run their podcasts. We are the easy button for any company to launch and run a podcast. We do three things: strategy, accountability, and full execution. And we even invented what some are calling the Wix of B2B podcasting. It's our platform, Podcast Copilot. So if you want to learn more about it, you can go to our website, rise25.com, or email our team at support@rise25.com. All right. And my guest here today, as I mentioned, is Nitin Pachisia. He is the founding partner at Unshackled Ventures. It's a VC firm based in Silicon Valley that invests in early stage immigrant founded startups. And I thought now is such a great time to have this conversation, given the general conversation that we've had about immigration over the years. I think it's a fascinating look at a VC firm that is really focused on that. And he has an amazing story coming over from India, working, so hard over the years to build a startup while working a full-time job. It's an amazing story. So Nitin, I'm really excited to have you here. And first of all, let's go back to your upbringing. You grew up in India, raised in a one-room house, I read, and your father was a hard-charging workaholic, focused on building up the business when you were born. And you, like many of my guests on this podcast, had a side hustle at a young age, and it was organizing a valley fair. So it was kind of like a Christmas fair with games and entertainment. So tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, it's good research, and thanks for having me. It's you're absolutely right. Grew up in a one room house where everything except the bathroom was inside that one room, and the way out of that one room into an actual house with separate rooms was my dad's entrepreneurship, and so I got to experience the benefits and to learn about entrepreneurship from that firsthand personal experience, which then led to this festival fair that I organized when I was about 11 years old. We used to live in this community, kind of like a condo community. And Diwali, which is like Christmas in India, it's the biggest
Huge,
festival of the
right?
year.
Yeah.
And so I got together with some of my friends within the community who were all older than me, which was kind of common. I usually hung out with older friends, and we organized this fair for three nights, 3 evenings, where we brought in entertainers, people who were running games, food stalls, drink stalls, and whatnot. And the goal we had was to have fun, create happiness for our society, and in the process, at a minimum, not lose money, but hopes that we would make money from it. And it turned out we all left with some Diwali present in terms of
Nice.
savings that we created out of doing this fair. That was
Nice.
truly my very first entrepreneurial as well as community building type effort.
That's great. And you ended up, I guess, at a young age, starting to work in your dad's business. What was that like?
Yeah, business, calling it business is pretty glorified. It was truly a workshop type setup where he and, with a couple other workers who worked with him had created this business of coloring plastics effectively. So if you've ever bought a plastic product, the color that you see comes from a combination of chemicals mixed into raw plastic pellets.
So mixing
Those
them together. Okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
And so my dad's business was figuring out what specific chemical combination gives the specific color to a
Yeah.
plastic product. And he was not a chemist, but he got very, very good at figuring this out. And so I started working with him when I was 12, just helping him, got to learn how he composes those, how they're packed, how they're delivered, the money part of it, costing. Um, and fortunately, unfortunately, just the way life twisted. When I was about 15, we had a tragedy in the family, and my dad did not want to run the business. My dad was not as motivated about financial success or even financial security as he had been for the first 15 years of my life. And so that
You,
was when I had to, sorry. Yeah.
well, I was just going to say, I mean, it's crazy how sometimes we try and shield our, I don't know if you have children, I have four kids, but you try and shield your kids from pain, right? But looking back on my life and, the painful experiences were probably what shaped me the most. So my father lost his job three times. He was out unemployed for a number of months after that, up to a
Yeah.
year. And each time we had to move really far away from family and friends. And I think back and it really shaped who I am today. So if you reflect back on this experience for you, you lost your younger brother who died in an accident, tragic accident. Um, that must have been just horrifying and just really shaped who you are.
It's amazing how what it how this any of these experiences, good or bad aside, just any experiences, the way they shape us is in both intellectually as well as emotionally. Is kind of fascinating to learn, and I had no idea until like the past couple years of how much trauma I was carrying from that.
Yeah.
Right, so the the learned experience of becoming very clear-sighted because at 15 um having to take over responsibility for the household, just having now, if my dad's not interested in running this, somebody's still got to pay the bills. We still have to run the house. And that shaped a lot of my efficiency that came in my life. I became very good at prioritizing. I became very clear-minded in terms of what I can't waste time on. Um, I learned a lot about the business from that experience. And at the same time, I also then learned as a coping mechanism of being a very cerebral person versus being an emotional person. And it's only in the last few years that I've gotten the resources and the support to accept the trauma, to accept the emotional effects that took place as well, and accept them, address them, learn from them. But you're absolutely right. I have two kids, 16 and 14, and uh, I'm sure that the experiences they're going through right now are going to shape a lot of their life.
Yeah.
Right. So um, can't change. I can't control everything that happens
Yeah.
around me, but it gave me from an opportunity standpoint, it gave me the opportunity to muster up the courage and take care of the people that I needed to take care of, and in the process, learn a lot about business, which is much more than what I could learn
Yeah. I was
in
going to ask
school
you,
or
uh,
MBA or
I was
whatever.
going to ask you about that. As you think back on this period of time before and after the tragic accident, are there lessons that you bring to the work that you do today that come from, hearkening back to that time that you were in your father's workshop mixing chemicals and selling?
Yeah, I mean, I was hosting an LPGP breakfast last week, a series of breakfasts that I do in small groups, and we were exactly talking about this. Like the weekend before was Father's Day weekend, and so it was, taking inspiration from our fathers, and we're talking about our childhood experiences. And this is what my reflection was. What I took away from that phase is hard work or work ethic in general. I got to build that gives me the confidence that I can outwork and outcompete anybody. the one thing that is fully in my control is effort. And I learned, just it became habit to put 100% effort in things that I believe will make a difference. So,
Mm.
later on in life, when it came time to choose what job I take, the thinking was very clear. I wasn't concerned by the discomfort or the effort involved. I took the job that gave me the best opportunity to learn, to grow as a person and financially. When it came time to then find a way to leave India and go somewhere else, I had the courage and the confidence that I can do it
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
of what I'd learned. And that's persisted with me throughout. Like even, as you were mentioning earlier, taking the risk without having a visa status to start a business in the US. Like if I did not have the experiences that I did, I
Yeah.
don't know if I would have had that courage and confidence to
Yeah,
to take the steps I took.
because anything is better than that, what you went through. My business partner and I partially connected because his grandfather is a Holocaust survivor. His grandfather at one point was literally in concentration camps, eventually escaped. And there's this story that we heard about these people that survived the Holocaust that went into the woods and were literally eating sticks. Like that's what they had to eat for a period of time. And
Hmm.
it might seem a little bit weird or twisted, but sometimes we'll talk about like, in the highs and lows of entrepreneurship, like, well, at least we're not eating sticks, right? But I think sometimes we capture that from our ancestors. By the way, I didn't complete that story, but my grandfather was a B-17 pilot in World War II, was flying over Germany dropping bombs. So we like to think that his grandfather, my grandfather, were fighting the same virtuous fight, one from the sky, one from the ground, you know. But it's so great to be able to draw from that inspiration, to draw
Yeah.
from the example of earlier generations. So I just can't, I can't imagine what this was like for you. You're 15, 16 years old. You lose your brother. You basically lose your father because he sinks into, it sounds like basically like depression, deep funk. And you have to take over the family business in order to put food on the table for the family. And you also are going to school and eventually go to college. I mean,
Hmm.
just no wonder the only thing you could naturally do is suppress that pain, that trauma until later in life you can deal with it when you have a chance.
Yeah, it was truly a coping mechanism. Just focus on the action needed. Um, there's Fortunately now, the compounding effects of all we do culminated to a point where I had the support of therapists and coaches um, who've helped me understand why my reactions are the way they are.
Yeah.
And instead of dealing with those reactions as good or bad, or creating the feeling of shame or guilt, it's just accepting this is happening because I now know what what led to it.
Right.
And if I want to break the cycle on something, I now have the awareness to
Yeah.
be able to do that.
Yeah.
um, I wouldn't wish those kind of experiences of having to survive in jungles eating sticks, or having to do what I did.
Yeah.
But everybody's dealt a hand, and has to deal with things that are beyond their control. I think the true character forming happens from just what you do in that moment.
Yeah.
Some people rise up, some people crash. I'm very fortunate that because of reasons I don't know, I was able to rise up in that occasion. And since then, whenever there's been an opportunity, um, but I've also crashed. I putting this out in the ether. If you want to kill me, you gotta drown me, because I couldn't learn how to swim. And that's I've tried 3 times, and there's some fear in me that doesn't let me do it. And so it's not that I figured everything out that I tried. There are things that I
Hmm.
couldn't. Um,
I
so
I do have the guy for you. a
Okay.
friend of ours who is a lifelong swimmer who would have gone to the Olympics in 1980, but it was the year that we boycotted because of the USSR back then. And he has actually he his passion is helping adults to learn to swim, and he did it with a past nanny of ours. So I might
Oh
have to
my.
might have to
All
introduce
right.
you
I'm
afterwards.
gonna email you. Yeah.
Yeah, he also has a beautiful pool overlooking the bay, so that doesn't make it too bad either. All right. So I want to ask you about, so you go through this trauma, and then at some point you decide to come to America, to pursue
Yeah.
coming to America. Now just that must have been emotionally very fraught for you to leave family behind. What was that like?
Not at all. It was actually,
Oh,
I
or not?
thought about it. Not at all.
Okay.
It was purely motivational. It was purely opportunity driven. So what happened was, as soon as I finished my undergrad and the CPA equivalent in India called CA, I decided that I've seen what's in India, and I somewhere had the realization that I will not achieve my full potential if I stay in that ecosystem.
Mm.
This was also, I think, supported by the fact that in this time frame, 2000, this was year 2001. So um,
Was it
in the
before 9/11?
it was
Because
just before 9/11,
okay, because there was
and
a whole crackdown against immigration after 9/11.
exactly.
Yeah.
But I finished high school in 97, 97 to or 97 to 2000, 2001 was undergrad and finishing CA. In those years between 95 and that time, we had started seeing Western TV come into India through cable. And
Hmm.
so there was this awareness of there's a world outside of India that I don't know what could be, but it looks really cool. So I need to experience that because
Hmm.
that may be the unlock I need. So that became the inspiration to look for a job that will give me the opportunity to travel and work in those environments. So I took the 41st job offer, passed on the first 40 because they were desk jobs. And I desperately needed a job, right? I was running this small business to just survive. And that was with ABB, which allowed me for 3 years to travel 3 weeks in one location. So about 4 weeks a month, I was traveling. And every 3 weeks, I was at a new place, learning new work cultures, new people cultures. Um, that became the opening to see there's a lot more to
Mm.
learn, a lot more to experience. And that led to meeting someone at Deloitte who then pursued me to join Deloitte, and that became the path to come to the US. So
Mm.
a couple things that kind of clicked in that was openness to taking the risk of experiencing the unknown, and also openness to seeing change as opportunity.
Mm.
Um, right. So as this was happening, I was purely evaluating these things as here's an opportunity to get further ahead. Here's an opportunity to do something new. Um, Partially, it was my emotional reactions got really suppressed because at 15, when I had to deal my with a death, um, it truly like shut down that emotional
Yeah.
tangent or emotional aspect of me. So those decisions were very rational, thought out, opportunistic decisions. Um,
That kind of
I
answers
kind
what
of
question I was going to ask because I mean, turning down 40 job offers, it must have been over a period of time, right? Like they don't all come in the same week, but there must have been, you must have been questioning yourself or your family must have been questioning, like, why do you keep on turning down these job offers? Just to, like, you're trying to get something perfect. You're never going to get a diamond in a rough. I mean,
yeah.
that you must have just closed yourself off emotionally from it because otherwise you'd be like, I need to take one of these to get myself out of the workshop.
Right. Absolutely. I think the clarity that I would prefer a job that gives me a chance to travel and experience what I don't know. That clarity was helpful in waiting 3 months to get the exact job that I wanted.
Yeah.
And ABB, the company that I took the job with, made me an offer about 1 month into the process, but they were offering me a different job, a different
Mm.
position. It took me 2.5 more months to convince the CFO to give me the one job that I wanted.
Mm,
It was the guiding light um, was that clarity of I want more.
yeah.
I want more than what's obvious and right in front of me.
Well, that
Um,
sounds especially relevant to what you do now, advising startup founders on having that clarity, having that guiding light, and remaining really committed to it. I want to ask you about your leap into entrepreneurship.
mhm.
Because then you take another job, you're working full time, a day job, and you also start a software company on the side. So, talk a little bit about the balance between those. You're a recent immigrant to the United States, you're working a full time job, and you have a
Yep.
startup also in the evening. That must have been a lot to balance. And rather, it was in the e-commerce space in 2012, which is still pretty early days for e-commerce.
Yeah, it was fascinating days. I mean, I came to the US in 2005 and things were booming. Right. I was in Silicon Valley, Deloitte office. Startups were taking off around us all the time. And there was out of my 5 years at Deloitte, 4 years were working, 4.5 years were working with startups on growth management. And that was
Mm,
also a product of entrepreneurship, which was in the first 6 months, what I realized is consulting, risk consulting or strategic consulting at big companies is a cover your ass consulting model. It wasn't giving me the joy that I wanted. And so I started a practice within Deloitte with a partner who was convinced that there's an opportunity with startups, except the traditional Deloitte model wouldn't work. And so we created a new product offering and it just took off with startups, which became my way of learning how startups truly function on the inside, and got to meet Osman Rashid, who was the founder of Chegg, because Chegg was one of my clients. When Osman started his next company, he asked me if I would join him and help him with finance and strategy. And the best way to learn how to build a startup is do it with someone who's doing it
yeah.
second time. Um, so I did that for 2.5 years, and it was while I was at No, the an idea was working with two friends, and this idea clicked of e-commerce taking off. I am buying, my wife and I, we were buying most of the stuff online, except she would ask me to go to Macy's or Nordstrom or Sephora when she wanted to buy cosmetics or beauty products. And I don't know if you've had that experience, but it's for me, it was kind of a boring experience of standing around while she goes up and tries all these
Yep.
stuff. And so that experience became the inspiration for if we can buy everything else online, why not these products? What is missing?
Yeah.
Turned out that experience of the product itself, the taste, smell, how it feels on the skin, color, those play a big role in the buying decision. So that's why I started that e-commerce company and learned what is the problem in getting the product experience at home, right? And so I started building that while I was working at No, and the tipping point was when we had three paying brands. So we started working on how are we going to run this. And the goal was the day we have three contracts, three brands that want to pay us to create this experience, we should quit our jobs and go full time because that was our conviction,
Hmm.
validation. My two co-founders were U.S. citizens, and I was on H-1B visa still. So when that time came for we should go full time, I asked the lawyers, I'm ready to go full time on my company, make it happen. And dozens of immigration lawyers said, no, you can't do that.
Can't
And
do it.
the 2012 version of H-1B and immigration readiness for H-1Bs was a little bit harsher than it is today. It's fortunate that things have improved. Um, but that persistence, I think that you just pointed out, like waiting for the 41st job offer to click, I think it was that persistence that helped to not give up and keep knocking on doors to find like there must be some way. So many people have built companies, so many immigrants who came here as students have built great companies. So it should be possible. And in doing that, I found one pathway that worked for me specifically. Um, it allowed me to not work a day job and be able to stay in the country,
Mm,
but I couldn't be an employee of my startup. So I had to do it as I'm just volunteering my time. Obviously, an imperfect solution. And as I kept trying to figure out that thing, the idea for, man, there's so much talent that's locked in around these visas at big
yeah.
companies and in academia, is if there could be a way to unlock this talent, there would be so many more companies built. There would be so many more problems that this talent would solve. Because I talked to so many founders. They were all very clear. They're staying at these companies or in academia just because of
Because
their visa
they're,
status,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
It's a truly painful form of disguised unemployment.
And also, I have to say, it's not beneficial to our country.
No,
We've got people like yourself that are ready. It's just about shifting where they spend their time. They're already in the
right?
country, right? I mean, why
100%.
wouldn't we encourage that kind of entrepreneurship, that kind of risk taking? That's what this country is all about.
Yeah, a very simple equation. If you have 100,000 people that are currently working jobs and they would go start their companies, by giving them a pathway to start their company, you instantly created 100,000 jobs,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Because they would
yeah.
vacate their jobs, they're going to
Right.
go start companies and give themselves a job, and
Right.
now some other 100,000 people can take those
Well,
jobs,
and
right?
frankly, probably create a lot more jobs
A lot
because these
more.
are very driven, very motivated
Exactly.
individuals who many of them, like they're going to make it work if it kills them in the process, right?
I'm
Yeah.
just saying, within a second, you've created 100,000, and now the
Yeah.
multiplier effect kicks in,
Right.
right? Like,
Right.
I think Kauffman Foundation had this study of um, every immigrant entrepreneur who starts a business creates 3.5 jobs per person.
Mm,
And this includes, an average, someone starts a sole proprietorship business, and then someone starts a company like Google that hires 60,000 people, right? So you
right.
obviously average it out. Um, but the job creation potential from that, which is why I think it's the poorest form of disguised unemployment, but at the individual level, it is truly taking away agency from some of the most ambitious people
Yeah.
who've already taken a big risk. They've shown you that they're capable of taking risks. They've shown you that they're capable of doing exceptional things. And when you look at the big picture, there's 7 billion people who live outside the US, right? About 1 million to 2 million a year get to come into the US. And now you can do the math of how competitive that situation is.
Yeah.
To
It's
beat
only the
seven.
most driven, the most hard charging, the most motivated, the most incredible people. I mean, I think part of why I was so excited to interview you on this podcast is because I've enjoyed my conversations with immigrant entrepreneurs on this show, probably more than any other category of type of entrepreneur, because for all these reasons.
And add to that new perspectives when you've experienced so many different ways of looking at the world, you come into a new situation. You're not just applying, oh, this is how things have always been.
You're right.
You're bringing a new perspective, and there's a reason why immigrant entrepreneurs have been so successful. Not only because they went to great schools and they're great engineers and drive the world view and being able to apply different forms of thinking into current situations. It just creates a different, when you change your vantage point, for example, it creates a new solution. And so
Yeah.
um, I think all the ingredients are obviously there. So, you know, as I went deeper into it and thought of how big the potential could be to unlock this talent, it was obvious that the software opportunity that I was working on would solve some things, but the agency that I can bring to entrepreneurs who I can help start businesses by doing what we do at Unshackled is making true human level impact, and then global impact. So that became the way to start Unshackled, and 11 years later, I'm really proud that instead of writing a Medium post and criticizing how everything that doesn't work, I took the step of let's figure it out with the existing infrastructure. What can we do at the business level? Because I don't know anything about politics. I don't know how to go in and influence people to change policies. And so
Yeah.
far in 12 years, not much has changed. Um, but business solutions can be implemented to work within whatever the current policy environment is. And that is what entrepreneurs do, right?
And
We
what
we
what what was that like in the early days? So you mentioned in circa 2014 when you're starting this up, you said the immigration rules were actually even more restrictive than they are today. So you
yeah.
go around to raise money from people on this premise. What was the reaction like when you t started telling people you want to focus on Shackled, focused on immigrant entrepreneurs?
Oh, there was clear excitement. Like anyone who had been through the journey themselves or had worked with someone, which most entrepreneurs have hired foreign-born um, talent or people who co-founded companies with immigrants. The excitement was clear. Obviously, my partner and I were coming from an operating experience. We didn't have a history of building large companies or having worked in VC. So we raised a proof of concept fund to prove that we can learn the trade of VC and the solution that we're offering will be accepted by entrepreneurs. Um, we raised that proof of concept fund from people who had built VC firms or had been angel investors for years because we wanted to learn from their experience. We wanted to learn how to be an investor. What are we
Hmm.
looking for? Um, and so since then, I think, a great achievement for us has been we have surrounded ourselves with really smart people who are passionate about enabling entrepreneurs, and we continue to do that. Our LPs have been massively supportive. Largest families in the US that like to stay private, but they are the builders of largest tech companies, healthcare, finance company, retail company, and so having the support and backing of very large family offices as well as individuals who've succeeded in their own ways as operators and entrepreneurs not only gave us the confidence and the support, but also gave us access to their knowledge, their networks, their influence. And
Yeah.
so now, a decade into it, we're very motivated to continue to raise more funds, continue to do what we're doing, just seeing the progress of our portfolio. Like this model works.
And tell us about some of those companies in your portfolio. I know one is a coconut farmer turned software entrepreneur. That sounds incredible.
Yeah, and you should meet him, and you will appreciate just how amazing of a human being Keshav is. We met him when he was 19 years old, I think. He grew up on coconut farms, taught himself how to solve Rubik's cubes, and became world Rubik's cube champion. Use that as the way to move himself forward, join an international school, and then took a one-way ticket to San Francisco.
Wow.
It was and lived in San Francisco on hackathon winnings, basically. Um, then decided to start a company within a couple of months, reached out to about 100 investors. Three of them replied, and we were the one who invested, and
And
we're
he's
blessed.
19 years old, having made it to the US and
Yep.
starting a company. That's incredible. And I was 19. I don't know what I was doing, but it certainly wasn't that.
Well, when you meet him, you will see that his 19 years he's put to tremendous use.
Mm.
He's learned 40 years worth of life experience in those 19 years, and um, just is one of the most dynamic personalities you will come across. But that's an example of, again, unlocking talent,
Yeah.
right? Like if it would be a shame if he in that situation if he doesn't find a solution and has to go back to India or go somewhere else to start his company. I don't know. It's all hypothetical on how successful his company is or isn't in that case. But the one thing that is not a hypothetical is he wouldn't make that decision if he had the agency to start the company where he wanted to start it.
And there's no question that there's unbelievable opportunity here in the United States, right? It's the
Exactly.
largest economy and so forth. I want to ask you about, so lots of investors decide to focus on a segment, but what we're talking about
Mhm.
here is it sounds like you focus more on a personality type. Is that your full like rubric? Is that what you use to filter to decide whether to make an investment, not looking at industry?
We don't have to. One of the learnings we had was um, investing in industries or obvious things is easy, so therefore anyone can do it. If as a new investor we're coming in, the stage at which we are most effective is when a founder has done some initial work and is committed or convinced that they should now quit their job, academia, anything else that they're spending their time on, and dedicate 100% of their time to building this company, which usually happens very, very early in the company's life,
Yeah,
right?
you're doing
Pre-product, pre-revenue.
we should explain to everyone listening, you're doing pre-seed investments, which is like the earliest of the early.
Correct. And even within pre-seed, we're doing the earliest form of pre-seed when friends and family invest. This is before there's a product, before there's any revenue. Um, there's customer discovery and some amazing people obsessed with solving
Yeah.
something,
Yeah.
right? And so what became our philosophy on investing is if we find people that are obsessed about either a solution or a problem or an opportunity and have the right skills to do it, are curious to learn what they don't know, are self-aware of their strengths and weaknesses, have a high opportunity cost because people with high opportunity cost will not settle for small things. That kind of creates an environment of people who will create large companies. They
Hmm.
will they will just push themselves. Velocity comes from that obsession and impatience, and that's kind of the key with venture scale companies is when you find something, you want to go at it as fast as possible. So we've really over the years learned the archetype that is most successful in our world. That doesn't mean we just stick to that one archetype. We also stay curious about um, many personalities can be successful. They could be a very quiet researcher type expert who speaks only a few words, but
I was
though each
listening
one of
to
those words.
I was listening to Sam Altman of OpenAI do an interview yesterday, and very soft-spoken guy. I think if you didn't know who he was and you're listening to this podcast, you might be like, "Well, this isn't that impressive," But one of the most impressive entrepreneurs out there working today.
Exactly right. So we kind of try to go beyond the package of like whether they are a particular ethnicity, gender, or speak in a certain way or not. I've met VCs who say like if a founder is not talking fast, they're probably not a great founder. I'm like, okay, great. That's a signal that you like to follow, and we like to stay open to other signals as well. Um, so, anyways, coming back to your question, I think our archetype is a visionary who's an expert or technical expert in their domain and therefore has the capability to execute on it. But then that's kind of the base layer. Then the other characteristics of obsession, velocity, curiosity, coachability, self-awareness, all of those start playing a role. And the judgment that we're making is there enough here that gives us the confidence that this could become a large company builder in the future,
Mm.
right? They're not one right now. Signals are not clear, which is why we have an unfair advantage in seeing the potential. And so that's how we found most of the founders today who are VCs are backing them and have after our investment of 200,000, others have invested 20 million, 40 million, 60 million in those companies.
Yeah.
is because we focused on the signals that give us indicators of potential versus
Yeah.
waiting for signals of execution, and then anyone can do it.
Right, right. Yeah, so interesting. I know we're almost out of time. Do you have time for two more questions?
Sure.
Excellent. Okay, cool. I want to ask you about what has it been like for you to experience this backlash against immigrants over the last 8 or 9 years? Just kind of to go through it after having, come to this country, after having, built this investment fund with the thesis that you built, after
Mhm.
having surrounded yourself with empowering immigrant entrepreneurs. What has it been like for you?
I think three emotions that kind of pull in very different directions are the most alive. There's anxiety from the unknown, anxiety from attacks on the very basic tenets of what makes America America. When I was born in India. I didn't have a choice in that situation, but then I had a choice for what I make my home, and I chose America because of all the things that America stands for. And a lot of what I personally feel as anxiety really comes from attacks on those core values at personal level and business level. The second part, the second emotion that's very alive is resilience. And that I think kind of goes to I have seen much worse situations, and even the worst things that we hear of today going on in the US um, are still better than a lot of the other stuff that I've seen. So I want this to stop. I want America to go back to be the healthier environment that it was. And I have a lot of resilience, and that resilience gives me the faith that it will get better. Um, and then the third emotion is um, hope and belief that we're going to be fine.
I love that positivity. Love that positivity. Um, all right, we'll almost let you break on that, but I'm going to ask my last question, which is my gratitude question. I'm a big fan of expressing gratitude. I think you just expressed it, but I love to when the guests, point out someone from their journey, a peer, contemporary friend, an LP, a mentor,
Yeah.
anyone that you would want to acknowledge and just thank them for what they've done for you.
The list is so long. The few names that I will explicitly share. But first of all, I'm grateful to the American immigration system. I'm here because the system works, right? And I know in the moment, and it's easy to criticize everything that's wrong, but it's still the best system in the world. Uh, Millions of us are here because the system works. There's room to improve, but I have a lot of gratitude for America as a country and the immigration system. I'm grateful to Osman for giving me the opportunity to come and work with him at No. And that was a big, leap of faith that he was taking because I had no prior controllership experience that he brought me into. And I got to work with him.
He believed
I
in
have a
you,
Exactly.
saw something in you.
And everybody needs someone who believes in you. And my partner at Deloitte, Farah, who gave me the opportunity to start the practice for startups, and we're now really close family friends. I have a lot of gratitude for her. A lot of gratitude for our investors in our funds over all these years who you know took a bet on two guys with no prior investing experience and wanted to see us build and have supported us. Gratitude for great founders who choose to work with us, right? They have options. They can raise money from a lot of other people. They choose to work with us for their belief and their trust that we would be great partners to them. And then obviously my partners, my family. Um, yeah, I've lived. I'm living in this world of gratitude. More more awareness of how happy that gratitude makes me.
Yeah, that's great. Nitin, this has been such an interesting interview. Thank you for your time. Where can people go to learn more about you and learn more about Unshackled Ventures?
Unshackledvc.com is our website. And one thing that is important, when we started Unshackled, we knew that new immigrant founders will not always find warm intros to VC. So we've had, from the time we started, an open link on our website where anyone can come and share their pitch, share their information with us. So if you go to unshackledvc.com, the top right corner, you'll see the pitch us link. Um, that's the easiest way to get in touch with me and the entire investment team. Every every pitch that is sent will get a response. That has been our commitment and continues to be our commitment. Um, and outside of that, obviously, I'm reachable on LinkedIn, where most of my business interactions are how we met.
Excellent. Yeah, absolutely. Nitin, thanks so much for your time.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the Smart Business Revolution podcast. We'll see you again next time, and be sure to click subscribe to get future episodes.